Hello, my name is Michael Farina. I'm the current Cranston City Council President and a Republican candidate for mayor. I'm coming to you today from my kitchen because we can't be out there campaigning and meeting with you in the streets, at your homes, knocking on doors, malls, stores, shops, and in your neighborhoods. We can't meet with you. So we're putting together a series of videos that will explain our platform, who we are, called Mike Farina's Promise for Cranston. And these are the promises I make to you as your next mayor. I will work hard to push for things that matter to you. Today's discussion is going to be about education. Education for me is probably one of the most important subjects that a mayor has to deal with. And for me personally, having two children in the Cranston Public Schools and being a product of the Cranston Public Schools myself, it's extremely important. You know, Michael is heading into his 6th grade year, his first year at Hope Highlands. Isabella is heading into her 4th grade year at Oakland School. So my kids really are super important to me, and their education is super important to me too. Education for me is about making sure we fund it the correct way. Being on the city council for these last 8 years, I've pushed funds to Cranston every year during the budget because I know the best way to ensure a great education is through increased spending, but really spending in the right areas, helping partner with the school department to know what those areas are, looking at ways to improve our infrastructure in the schools. Those are all the things that I look forward to be doing as your next mayor. My wife and I have dealt with distance learning, as I'm sure many of you have these last few months as we close the school year. So thank you to all the teachers, the faculty, the staff, and the students and the parents for working through this. I know it's been a challenge, having technology at my disposal, having Wi-Fi at my house made it a lot easier for me, but I know not every Cranston resident has that. And those are the challenges I think we have to look to fix as we go into next year. How do we ensure we have the right access, the right equipment, so all Cranston students have the same basic rights of education? The big challenge that we've run into this year is the budget for schools. As you know, the state is facing a $200 million shortfall in the current fiscal year they're in and a $700 million shortfall for next year based on everything that's going on with COVID-19. We work really hard in the city council chambers to make sure we have enough funding to cover all the needs of our school department. The challenge this year was without the General Assembly meeting, we don't know what the schools are going to get for funding. So there's $4.1 million in funding that was supposed to come from the state that hasn't been confirmed yet. And until they confirm those funds, they're basically in limbo. So if you think about it, we have bills to pay, things to do, but we don't know what our revenues are going to be from the state. I've been working with Speaker Mattiello, having weekly calls with him to understand their budget process, know what they're doing, and really partnering with Superintendent Janine Nadamassi and her team to understand how this funding hole will affect the students of Cranston, and really advocating hard at the State House with our leadership at the state to get this funding back, because it's important that we fill the hole on that $4.1 million from the state, because we need it to not have budget cuts in the schools. It would be very, very bad if we can't get that funding filled in from the state. And we're really advocating hard at the council level. I know I am as a leader, working with other leaders to make sure that we get this done for our community. Collaboration is key, and that's something I've always taken as a city council president, working with all parties to make sure we fund education, working with anyone who has a seat at the table, parents, teachers, staff, faculty, students, to understand the challenges that they have to go through and really work as a group, as a unit, to make it better. As your mayor, I'll work with everybody who has an idea that we need to share, ways to drive more funding to education, to really create a 21st century learning environment for our students. It's really key to have that 21st century learning environment. I look at the work that we've done in Eden Park School that the council supported under my leadership to change the style of the building to make it more amenable for a 21st century education, more open floor plans, better seating, better lighting, better technology, more access to electricity at different areas, all things that some of the older buildings in our school system just don't have anymore. You look at some of the buildings that were built well before I was even born. I'm 41 years old. So these buildings are the newest buildings are almost as old as I am. So it's imperative that we continue to work and push that 21st century learning environment like we did at Eden Park School. I know that the school bond is very important to me, and it's important to a lot of you. That bond will be on the ballot this November. And I urge all of you to pass it because that's $140 million in spending that will help update and upgrade a lot of our schools into that 21st century learning environment. We need to do that because, as I stated, the schools, I went to Oakland School, I went to Western Hills, and I went to Cranston West. I'm lucky enough to be in the schools with my kids to see how they look, and I can tell you not much has changed in Oakland School since I went there. With the exception of maybe some new paint on the walls, the buildings are still pretty much the same. So we need to really pass that bond to really effectively fix our schools now. And the great thing that we have right now is we have a good, solid reimbursement from RIDE. So the one thing you might not understand is, as you approve a $140 million bond, there is state and federal money that they've put aside that we can use to get reimbursed as we fix schools. It's that imperative that we fix schools. We can go get this reimbursement and it won't cost the taxpayer the entire $140 million. That's something to remember as you're thinking about that bond. We need to push for more technology in our schools. I mentioned earlier that kids, not every kid has access to a Chromebook or a laptop in their house. And I commend the school department for, with distance learning, really working hard to make sure children had that. But how do we have more technology in our classrooms? How do we build a foundation where we're working together to drive education into that 21st century learning environment? Because that's really key for the future of our society. Our children are our future. In reality, what we teach them today will make them upstanding moral leaders in the future. And this is the foundational aspect of what we do with education. So we have to make sure that we're funding our schools in an effective way. As a person who's been working in the private sector for the last 20 years, doing forecasting, budgeting, understanding strategic negotiations, leading from the front from a financial, fiscally prudent lens, I will work to stretch every dollar that comes in from city taxes to its fullest. I will work to make sure that we're not approving expenses that don't make sense, that we're making the most effective educational choices and educational spends that we can, because that's really what we need going forward. The city is going to come out of this financial crisis from COVID-19 and this pandemic, and we're still going to be challenged. And I know I have the skills to lead that challenge and help decide what the best expenses are, how to right size the ship to make sure we're not just spending your money willy-nilly. My goal as your mayor is to always be the first one in line to let you know what needs to happen, what will happen, and how we can work together to make Cranston the best place we can. I look a lot at the work we've done in Cranston around our buildings, work we need to continue to do, and work we've done with our fields. When I first came on the council 8 years ago, there was a project to put turf in at Cranston East, which was a good project. The council approved that project, moved it forward, and people started using the field in addition to our students and our student athletes. And we started seeing some revenue come in from the field. A casualty of that field was there's a field at Cranston West that unfortunately just got old. I played football on it and ran track on it in 1994, 95, and 96. And the field really didn't hold up. The crown, as you know, a field has to have water runoff. The crown was not good. It had bad water runoff. So the field kind of stopped getting used, and the players at West and the students at West would use the field at East. We were able to raise money at that field at East, and we actually put in another replacement field last year. I was approached 2 years ago from the Cranston West Alumni Association to talk about potentially putting in a turf field at Cranston West. It was an idea that I thought was noble to put a second turf field at our other high school to really make sure that the Falcons could play again. And we undertook a project of working with a public-private partnership to drive that idea and bring it to fruition. And through a lot of efforts of a lot of different people raising money, working together, being collaborative, it really showed that through public-private partnerships, you can help do things in the city and not go to the taxpayers for every penny. So as your mayor, I would work to keep driving those public-private partnerships, find sources of income through other things than taxes, look for grants to improve our buildings, look for ways we could partner with different corporations to fix things. That's really the key. We have to fix our schools now. I mentioned that a bunch of times. I'm probably getting repetitive on it because it's that important to me. My children go to Cranston schools. I graduated high school in 1996, my wife in 97. We're products of Cranston Public Schools. Our schools are good, but they can be great. And I think by working together with our leadership, at the school department, we can really work hard to make our schools great and really work towards that 21st century educational environment. I thank you for listening to this video. Please visit my website at MikeFarinaForCranston.com. There's a whole bunch of information on me, on who I am, what I stand for, some of the pillars that we're going to be pushing in this campaign, and why I'm the right choice to lead Cranston into a bright future. Again, thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful day.